fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It's been a tumultuous week across the iRacing sphere. Anything that you could have thought had happened has potentially been one-upped again and again. We have seen drivers look at their accounts and say, hang on a minute, a 1 week suspension to come in, they've been revoked. Everything that has happened over this week has been a nightmare for certain drivers in this field, but all that matters at this point in time is that these drivers have officially been warned, and now they are able to race the final 4 rounds of the championship. It is a beautiful place to come for round 9 here, and it is, of course, this magical Interlagos circuit, which time and again proves that racing action can be sensational, can be fantastic. It's Jake Sperry here in the commentary box, joined by a driver who would have been prime picking for the championship if all the bans were upheld 2 days ago, that being Bo Albert. Bo, let's just talk about, though, this fantastic circuit. It is ripe for overtakes. 2 fantastic straights where this place can go, and one of the few tracks where you can say side-by-side can happen at every single point.
I mean, how many battles have we seen through that infield section? It is just absolutely every race, just absolute white-knuckle racing every single time. And I can't wait to see what kind of racing we get, because, of course, there is a long run in towards turn number 1 as well, down that massive uphill section. So drivers get plenty of slipstream into a very hard braking zone for the center S's. So what these drivers are prepared for is a long battle, a hard battle as well, because it's 17 laps of struggling to break away from your competitors.
Exactly, and looking at qualifying at the moment, it is Jeff Giassi who is on pole position at the moment for Positive Sim Racing, 134.711, followed by a driver who it's the first time we've seen in this championship, in these top split broadcasts here on SimSpeed TV. Most importantly, he is one of the Team Redline elites. Over the years, he's had a victory in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series at this track. It's Alexei Usiakala in second position, and we know here, Bo, that Team Redline, they've brought firepower after their pure merger.
They absolutely have. Redline is a whole different beast now. You only have to look at what they're doing in special events, what they're doing in the Porsche eSports Supercup Pro Qualifiers. They are back with a vengeance. It's safe to say that Redline probably faded into the background a little bit throughout 2018 and 19, but boy oh boy, they are strong. They have a lineup like you would not believe, and right now we are looking at one of their drivers making their way through, and I believe that's the driver of Dennis Hrabosky, and he's trying to maximize a little bit. Doesn't have a time on the board at the moment, the only driver without a time, so he has plenty of room for improvement as he works his way around this second lap.
Yes, and it's going to be a tough lap as well for Hrabosky here as he heads to the Bico de Pato, the Duck's Beak, looking to get a wider line as possible through that section, struggling a little bit there on the power, having to correct slightly as he heads through Mehulo, this long left-hander down the hill, using all the curb you can and all the road on that right-hand side before heading into Junsao, the junction, and up the hill you go. As you look forward, we've seen so many great names looking to put themselves up there and try and get themselves going through, and that includes the real-life names who are either watching or have been racing, likes of Max Verstappen, Danny Juncadella watching on as well. Here is Hrabosky over the line with less than a minute on the clock, 35.9. Oh, it's not a good lap at all, 1.2 seconds off. He did find time, but no positions. He stays on the solitary 11th row of the grid at the moment. Valtteri Alanda is on a lap, as is Maran Cholak. Remember, though, they are not able to finish their laps. Bo, if they do get the 8 minutes stopped on the clock, that's in 30 seconds. I think Maran Cholak's too far away to get one more lap in.
It's going to be extremely close, but Marin always willing to give something a bit of a shot, and he is indeed trying, but yeah, it's a very long run up to the start-finish line if you're at the final turn, and Marin's not even there at the moment either, so it's going to be a very long road for him, and I think it may just about be an 11th place start, which is not a bad place to be, just outside the top 10. Marin, of course, looking very primed to make his way into the top 20 in the standings, so still very good points on offer for him as we get a look at our grid.
Yes, time's up on the clock. He will not get over the line, so it will be Jeff Giassi on pole position. The man who loves it around here, Alexei Usiakala, alongside in second. Josh Anderson didn't like his time. He starts this one from third with Matti Kaidasoya in fourth position for Vendaval Sim Racing. Peter Berriman, he's not eligible for the championship, but he is still in fifth position with Oriol Bo in sixth position overall. Valtteri Alanda and Ricky Castro-Lado are 7th and 8th, with Julian Rodriguez 9th and Salva Talens rounding out the top 10.
Kolak wouldn't get his second lap in, but he still gets an 11th place start alongside Alexander Lauritsen for Logitech G Altus Esports. Carly Janssen and Gnoso Telsden line up 13th and 14th respectively, with Ivo Howler rounding out the top 15. Gervaz kicks things off from the 8th row of the grid, with Kim Eriksson and Samuel Bear making up the 9th row of the grid. About Kazabon, probably a little bit disappointed with that qualifying effort. A very strong driver, so look for him to make his way through the field. Adria Perez and Dennis Hrabosky in 20th and 21st are in an absolutely identical place. But the good news for them, Sperry, it's an uphill start here, so there's plenty of opportunity if you get the wheel spin absolutely right to get yourself into a brilliant spot under brakes for turn number 1.
It's not just the fact that it's an uphill start, it's the fact that it does level out for those drivers towards the rear of the field. They have a better opportunity of a good start because they have gravity on their side, and that is around the 4th row. You need to keep an eye out on that. Likes of Ricardo Castro-Lado in the VRS Koana Sim Sport car could be absolutely paramount to the way that this race is going to be run today in the number 3 machine, indicating he has the 3rd highest iRating in this field. They have 2 minutes to grid up. They traditionally, with this new tyre model version 7, want to grid up as late as possible here to make sure that the tyres do not cool off. The likes of Alexei Usiakala getting onto grid right about now, as you can see, 3rd, 4th, and 5th still waiting. They can't wait too long, though, here when it comes to this field. They know they haven't got much time as they look to get themselves going. This is crunch time. This is where every single point becomes so vital in this championship. Who's got what it takes around a legendary track? Green flag in the air, and let's get going. Alexei Usiakala with a slow one here as they all struggle on the inside line, as they all try and find a way through into turn 1. Anderson already up into seconds. They head to the center S as they go through. Any dramas here into turn number 1? It seems none of the sort. They all manage to file their way through without too many issues. Anderson still under pressure here as Alexei Usiakala fights back then on the inside of the curve of the Sol, all the way to the Interlagos with almost contact. 2 tyres on the grass from Anderson as they go through. Do you dare go 3 wide here? Matti Kaidasoya and Peter Berriman. No, they don't. And Alexei Usiakala going well. Troubles at the back.
Absolutely a big trouble. Samuel Lebert, Adrian Perez.
And that's, Calzabon goes up and over in the background as well there, Bo, with Oriol Bo and Castro-Lado around.
Yeah, absolutely a nightmare for them. You can see Kazaban still coming to a stop there as he continues rolling. A nightmare there. Look at the lead from Jeff Giassi, who's firing away, but it's a battle behind as Alexei Usiakala makes up for his bad start, gets himself back up into P number 2 ahead of Peter Berriman, who is fighting very hard in the Apex Racing Team car. More carnage. This time it's Salva Talens who goes around, and another of the Core Sim Racing cars. A nightmare for Core. It's just going all kinds of wrong for Carly Janssen at the moment. And now Josh Anderson has gone around as well. It is complete chaos at the start here at Interlagos.
Well, we expected things to be a bit fiery after this last week, but we didn't expect to start like this. A small tap from Matti Kaidasoya and Anderson goes around. There's been 5 separate incidents here on this opening lap. So much to piece together in all of this. We haven't talked about the fact Kim Eriksson went on straight at Ferradura, the horseshoe corner. But this opening lap has been madness. Jeff Giassi has broken away exactly what he wanted from position 1. 1.8 seconds on the opening lap. Berriman down the inside for second position. But here comes the up and under attempt then from one Alexei Usiakala trying to get the red line car through. He cannot get that one working at the moment. Valtteri Alanda now up into 5th place overall, but it has been madness off of this start. Retirement Central. But here's a replay then of the start. And Bo, take us through it here. Brought to you by Motion Simulation.
Absolutely. Looking at the Kim Eriksson car of Black Star Racing's Kim Eriksson, I should say, getting a bit confuddled. But you can see they're making their way through the center S. A very long left-hander follows, and a lot of cars just tracking out a little bit, of course. With the speed they are trying to carry out a little bit loose. Snap of oversteer collects one of the cars, and Kim so lucky to get away with it, but the core, MSI, and a couple of others just not so lucky yet collected. And we'll try and get a replay of that in just a few moments, but we'll see what happened a little bit further on, because there was more carnage. You see Ricardo Castro later around, then Thibaut Kazaban with a massive rollover into the distance, hard hit into the wall. Lucky not to go over the guardrail itself, but then we had more carnage making their way forward, because of course, Kim Eriksson fires himself off and into the tire wall. He will go. The nightmare of a start would continue, but not until a bit further on, because of course we had Josh Anderson go around as well. But there was that big shunt on the exit of turn number 3. And then we'll get a better shot of what happened to Thibaut Kazaban. You can see side by side with Hrabosky. Check up in front with the crash and just unsided there. Had nowhere to go. And Kazaban just launched off the front of the stationary Porsche.
Well, that was a triple A incident. And we'll get a look on board as Giassi sets the first lap of the race. 136.3. See Calzabon here goes through the left of turn number 4, and he sees one vehicle around, and he'll be unsighted for the second one, and that's where he goes. He goes for the gap that doesn't exist due to the sideways Oriole bow, and he ends up going straight up and around, which is not how he wanted his race to go, especially as he is fighting desperately for championship points at the moment. Keep an eye on this battle though. Second, third, fourth, and fifth. It's one Irishman, Northern Irishman, playing it up against 3 Finnish drivers. It's like watching the Finnish National Championships here, Bo, at the moment, because at the moment it seems they all want that second place. They all want those points, those very, very crucial points, which at this part of the season becomes so vital, especially with strength of field when we talk about it.
Absolutely, of course, the Finnish Cup using rallycross cars, a whole heap lot less grass tracking and being in the dirt here, but nonetheless, the Finns translating their skills very, very well indeed and hunting down the likes of Peter Berryman at the moment, who was just struggling a little bit to match the pace of Jeff Giassi. 0.5 of a second the margin lost by Peter Berryman to our race leader currently, so he is falling back into the clutches of Alexei Usiakola, of course, with that draft as well. And we haven't quite seen the benefit of that draft yet, or about to, as we go on board with Matty Kaidasoja, who's chasing down Alexei. 0.8 of a second is the margin as they make their way onto this very long straight, and you would expect to see that gap just decrease slightly and slightly, but I think Alexei is much more in the draft of Berryman than Matt Kaidasoja is of Jakola. So we'll see how that gap is closing for Jakola, who closes right up into turn number 1. Nowhere near close enough, but 0.3 of a second briefly was the margin there. So bit by bit, that Redline car is just making some very nice progress on the Apex car.
Was slower though last time by Alexei Usiakola, 135.7. Peter Berryman, 135.6. Both slower than Giassi, a 35.5 that last time by. Very interesting to note. Something else that's catching my eye is track temperature here today, Bo. It is 47 degrees here on the roads. It's going to be a hot one for the tyres. They're not going to like it. It is going to mean that these tyres are going to fall off in the latter stages of this race.
A lot of people have the impression with the Porsche that it's only 30-minute races, so you don't notice a huge amount in fall-off on tyres, but you would actually be surprised, especially when it comes to these hot conditions, just how slidey they tend to get. You don't overly lose pace in the tyre, but you do lose a lot of grip, and it does affect your confidence trying to put the power on out of corners and just how much you can actually attack the car as well. On board with Alex Lauritsen at the moment, you can see just in these big traction zones around these hairpins, you have to be very, very careful. So right now, the tyres would be just about up to proper operating temperatures and pressures, but in the later stage of the races, around lap 13 all the way to lap 17, be a little bit more watchful of what's going on in the body language of these cars, because they could be moving around a whole heap more.
Exactly, and they know that there is mistakes to be had at this track. This is not a Herman Tilke design track by any stretch of the imagination. Very seldom places have massive runoff areas, and they know that a small mistake could put them back a whole multitude of seconds around this track as they go on to start lap 5 here of 17 around this track. The front 5 at the moment split by just under 4.3 seconds, but now keep an eye on this fracture happening. 3rd and 4th position. Kaidasoja is now into this 4th position at the moment and is looking at this thinking, okay, well, maybe there are better opportunities going on. There's not the time that's coming in to be helpful right now. Gap almost a second, and once you break a second, it's trouble. And you know what? Valtteri Alander is noticing this. He wants down the inside. Oh, he thought about it at the right of Ferradura. A brave driver gets the move done there. He may procure a run up the exit here, make a dive to the inside. He thinks better of it. Is Alander now being held up in the 13 machine?
You would absolutely have to think so. You can just see just how much more aggressive he's able to be into a couple of the corners. And you even saw at turn number 4, Matty Kaitasosha actually ran a little bit wide there, just missing his marks and went right off into the AstroTurf, which is why Alander had that pretty nice run into towards turns 5 and 6. So Alander looking strong, but we all know Kaitasosha is no slouch. So if he can re-get his thoughts together again and just focus, get his head down, there is every chance he can begin to pull away once again. But Alander, he's a feisty driver. He's in the top 20 cutoff currently for the Porsche Esports Supercup, so he won't be willing to let a couple of points go wayside at the moment.
No, he certainly won't, and drivers are going to be on a mission trying to get positions. Most importantly, Josh Anderson is one of them. He's on the back now of Yao Vaz, who has ever been a driver who has been around the block more times than you can remember. Here as he looks towards turn number 1, this is going to be a big move for Anderson. Remember, he wants to secure his championship place for next season. He will do that with a nice result here today. Getting inside the top 10, that will be the first stage in terms of that ascent to World Championship status. And you've got to talk about how these Australian, New Zealand style drivers in the continent, they have been the revolution. They have been the new big toy in terms of the drivers to beat over the last 12 to 18 months, Bo. You're, of course, one of them, but the likes of Jared Filsell, Josh Rogers et al., it has been that scene which has started to flourish as Anderson starts to get closer to Yao Vaz.
Absolutely. You only have to look at the last season's championship results in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Forget about the championship. We all know who was the winner of that. Another Aussie there in Josh Rogers. But Jared Filsell also fighting up the order as well. So both of our Australians were right up there. And we're looking to get Dane Warren and Josh Anderson in there as well. And they are looking very, very quick indeed. But Josh not quick enough at the moment on the back of Zhao Vaz, as he is doing everything he needs to, placing the car on all the apex, hitting his marks every now and then. And that is keeping Josh Anderson at bay. But the biggest challenge is about to come because Anderson is very, very good on corner exits. It's always been a skill of his. You can see Zhao Vaz there with a little bit of attitude on the car out to the AstroTurf as well. And now look for that Logitech G-sponsored car to close and close and close. He's got the run, he's got the draft, and Anderson is not afraid to send it, as they would say, as he makes the run in towards turn number 1. It's been a passing zone for so many drivers, and Josh Anderson is about to make it his own. Late on the brakes, the 4 car will go, and it is as easy as you like. Position gained for Josh Anderson.
A very comfortable overtake come the end, and it was a 35.5 from him that last time by. He'll be happy with that move. It was a comfortable move to be made. Keep an eye, though, at the battle at the front. Jeff Giassi is not pulling away at the rate he maybe would have liked at this point in time. The gap is hovering around 2.5 seconds, and that, you would say, in terms of the races we've seen this season, Bo, has been light years in terms of some of the races we've had. We've had victories go down to the 1,000th of a second marker. But the difference is he doesn't have the ability to turn off in terms of shutting his brain down to 95% capacity and just driving the track. He knows one small mistake, Berryman and Yuzi Yakala are right there.
Absolutely. One little error from Jeff Giassi and it is all game over for him. He's going to be losing a whole heap of spots and that all-important win. Of course, he is trying to win on home soil at the moment. He's doing a very good job indeed in front of his home crowd. And he'll be trying to get that F1, well, not F1, but at least that win to make up for what happened to Felipe Massa in 2008. And I'm not going to repeat the line that I'm sure the chat is all thinking of. But at the moment, Peter Berryman doing a very nice job just to match Giassi's pace. Because, of course, Giassi was definitely the star driver in the opening 6 laps. But now Berryman just beginning to match that and bring Alexei Usiakola along with him as well. So Giassi this time around on a 35.4. And guess what Peter Berryman's done? 35.4.
Well, that shows you they are dead even at the front, but it was slightly better from Giassi as they go through. Good battles close here as Maran Cholak currently under pressure. 7th, 8th and 9th. Ganoso Tesdalen and also Alexander Laritson wanting on this scrap at the moment, but again, it's Cholak who is good off of the exit and able to give himself just a little bit of room. And you have to say at this point in time, just hovering in and out of 1 second is Cholak. He's getting the fringes of the draft here from Julian Rodriguez, who was up there at Daytona, very nearly had a race victory, if not for his contact with Jeff Giassi into turn 1. These are some very accomplished drivers. Cholak, of course, himself with a race victory this season at Barcelona. So Cholak with experience, Julian Rodriguez with experience. And remember, Julian Rodriguez is only a second and a half here off of Valtteri Alanda. They are very evenly split throughout the top 10.
No, they absolutely are. I mean, the entire field is very closely split when you look at lap times, but in terms of actual proximity on track to one another, this is definitely one of the better fights at the moment. And you've got Alexander Luritzen in that battle pack as well, who's trying to make his way in. But you have to remember, Marin Cholak has a bit more experience in the Porsche than a couple of these other drivers. He actually competed in the Porsche Esports Supercup last season. Wasn't quite able to retain his license though, but is doing everything he needs to get himself back into the main show, and doing a very nice job at the moment, like you said, with that win at Barcelona as well. But you can also tell Sten just keeping along with him, and he's closing in the draft, but we'll be nowhere near close enough to make anything happen in towards turn number 1. So we'll have to wait yet another day, as this battle pack will potentially get a little bit larger, with the likes of Josh Anderson closing in behind, matching the pace at the moment, but a very fiery driver, and you know he's after a recovery drive after that opening lap issue. So he's doing very well at the moment, as the battle pack for P number 3 continues just to stay close at the moment. Alexei Usiakola matching almost to the 1,000th Peter Berryman at the moment, so very, very close, just not able to get that incentive to make any kind of pass, or at least get himself in a position to pass.
Half distance already score complete then at Autodromo Jose Carlos Paces. I believe I just said then twice, but we've had 5 retirements from this race so far from this 21 car field. Ivo Howler, Thibaut Kalsabon, Dennis Hrabosky, Kim Eriksson and Samuel Libert have all gone out of this race. They will not be scoring points from this one, and that will hurt in terms of their long-term ambitions. But for the time being though, there are still some great scraps in this field. Zhao Bao's not gone away from Josh Anderson. You've still got the 3-car scrap, Cholak, Dalen and Larritzen. And you also got to keep an eye out on the likes of Salva Talens, because Ricky Castro-Lado is not having the best day. He's -5 at the moment, and could, if he's not careful, become -6. He was quicker though that last time by, but Ricardo Castro-Lado has been limping over the line for his top 20 space here today, Bo.
He has. He's a very, very fast driver. We know he can get in towards that top 20, but of course the cards did not fall his way at the start of this race. Got caught up in quite a little bit of an issue. Very lucky to get away with damage in that whole turn 4 kerfuffle, so he has that to thank his lucky stars in that case. But I mean, at the moment, just doesn't quite have what it takes to close it on this pack in front. Just a 1/10 of a second slower than Carly Jansen in front that last time around, and 1/10 slower than Salva Talens as well. So Ricky has a little bit of work to go, but at the moment, Alexei Usiakola still trying to get to the front there of Peter Berryman, but just can't quite do it. That very shiny green metallic or chrome on the side of the Apex Racing car. I'm not going to say it's the best looking color combination for Apex Racing Team, but hey, he's making it look very, very fast at the moment, it has to be said, and doing a very nice job indeed. Alexei hunting down in that very nice red line car, and I have to say they've got one of the better liveries on the field now. I do like the changes they have made, but not making many faster at the moment, unfortunately.
No, it's not, and it very much is clear to see Alexei Usiakola has not been able to push by a Peter Berryman, who, of course, is very, very accomplished, not just when it comes to sim racing. He's a very avid snooker player. He played in the under-21s category, I do believe it was, in Cyprus a couple of years ago, playing on television for that. So Peter Berryman, very accomplished when it comes to having a cue between his hands, but he knows exactly what he needs to do. He knows that he cannot push any faster and get to Jeff Giassi, who's 2.8 seconds down the road. Requires a mistake from the Positive Sim Racing team, who at the moment, they seemingly have nothing at the moment, and Giassi will all but secure his place if things stay like this. He's found a good medium there with a 35.5 that last time by. 35.5, 35.4 for Alexei Usiakola was the fastest of the 3 that last time by, but nowhere near enough to close down in terms of position. Worth noting, Andrew Perez is now out of the race. He's pulled it over to the side of the road. He said, I cannot gain any more positions. I was 20 seconds off the pace, and there is no chance that these drivers are going to put their races at risk in the second half of this race. He's decided to retire. It's a shame to see that, but sometimes it happens. Larritzen with a look into the mirrors of Taz Dalen, but not close enough to make a move. He's trying to play tactics.
Yeah, he's getting a whole heap closer now. He wants to make something happen, but just not quite there or in the position to make it happen right now. Needs a little error from Ganoso Telston to make anything happen. But, I mean, it's a very tricky circuit. We are getting a little bit later on in the race now where things like the tyres aren't working as well as they were at one point, and the track temp is still extremely high. It's only gone down by a single degree to 45. So at the moment, these drivers are not having an easy, luxurious life of it. They are having to work these cars, having to fight with every little bit that they've got. And at the moment, Larritzen not able to match the pace of Telsden through this very tricky section, but we'll see what he can do down this long front straight, as all three of these cars have closed up quite a bit as well, as Telsden is a little bit closer than he was before to Kolak as well, which is good to see. So whilst that is good news for Larritzen that he has the draft on Telsden, Telsden, of course, has the draft on Kolak. So Larritzen either wants Kolak to make a mistake and get out of the way, or pull away from Telsden so that he can get the draft on Telsden all to himself, but it's just not happening at the moment. I've got to say, on this lap, it's looking too far back again.
I've just noticed over the last couple of laps, Valtteri Alanda has been dropped from Matti Kaidasoya in 5th place, so he's going to be outside of 1 second and looking backwards. 1.3 seconds back is Julian Rodriguez, who's been very consistent, 2/10 quicker that last time by. Kaidasoya is desperately holding on to the back of Alexei Usiakala. I think his vehicle's a lot better for the second half of this race. He's doing 35.4s at the moment. He's the fastest man on track right now, and he's trying to chase down a podium and maybe even second place. Matti Kaidasoya, keep an eye out on him. If he closes to the back in the last 6 laps, he may be the driver who could just steal a couple of places away.
I said earlier on, if Matti Kaidasoja could get his head down and really just dig deep, he could pull away from Alanda, and look what has happened. Alanda just not able to match the pace of Kaidasoja at the moment. He's doing so well and is nipping away at the times ever so slightly. I mean, 1/10 of a second is not much per lap, but it does add up, especially if Alexei Usiakala and Peter Berryman start fighting away. And of course, as the race goes on, the attempts at an overtake may get a little bit more desperate, or at least a little bit more ambiguous and aggressive from the drivers. So we'll see if any kind of battling can happen, and just bring Kaidasoja into that fight again. I love watching Matty race. He's a brilliant racer, brilliant in racecraft, brilliant in speed. So I'd love to see him duke it out for a top 3 spot, and he's doing everything he needs to at the moment. So we'll see what he can do as we head to just 5 laps to go.
With the exception of Oriol Bow, the drivers inside of the top 14 all had times within 0.4 of a second of each other. That just shows you just how strong this field is at the moment. Another 0.5 taken off Jeff Jassy. That won't be the part that matters. What does, though, is the fact that Kaidasoya could not find the improvements in time. Maybe pushed a bit too hard over that lap. Got himself outside 1 second once again. Dropped another 10. Fastest man that last time by was Julian Rodriguez. But here comes Alexander Larritzen, the Dane. Wants a move on Ganoso Taz Dalen at the moment. And Taz Dalen currently in the number 20 Club International. Under pressure, but not close enough. Into Interlagos, but that's the closest they've been. Larritzen wants a clear-cut opportunity. Sometimes you got to go for the 50-50s. Up towards Ferradura, nose to tail. Look for the inside. No, backs out of it there. Was not brave enough to commit just yet.
Well, I mean, it's also a gambling game at the moment as well, because, of course, Larritzen, he's in a very strong position. He's in the championship. He's in that top 20 currently, and is a nice position in the race. Of course, it's not fighting in the top 5, of course, but these are still very solid points. And as we get later on in the season, there is a factor of just banking points and getting yourself across the line into a nice, safe spot. And I think maybe Larritzen has that on his mind. He would rather finish 9th than in the tyre wall, so that may be playing on his mind. But like you say, sometimes if there is a 50-50 move available, you just have to just wing it and see what happens. And I'm sure Larritzen will be willing to make any kind of move he can, as the sun comes out very aggressively and brightens the track up a whole heap. So the heat may be about to brought, and it not just like from the ambient temperature either. I think Larritzen has a very nice run indeed, one of the better runs he's had for a little while, closing in just ever so slightly, but it's still a long way back. He edges the car to the inside ever so slightly, but that 50-50 move we're talking about just isn't forthcoming at the moment.
Certainly not, because Marin Cholak is the great equaliser in this field. There's nothing Larritzen can do because of Taz Dalen. having the draft any advantage on these long straights, especially the Reto Aposta, is mitigated through this section, and with only 4 laps to go, you have to feel like a move has got to be on the card pretty soon, unless he is going to be stuck in that position for a very, very long time. So keep an eye on that as that continues. João Vaz has not gone away from Josh Anderson. He may want to look to try and get back. He thinks about it in the mirrors up at Ferradura. We've seen that quite a bit here during this race. Drivers looking in the mirrors at Ferradura, hoping for a mistake out of drivers who very seldom make mistakes. They have mastered the craft of this style of series. A half-an-hour race is pretty much what they are built. It is bread and butter for them at this point, and at the moment, it's a nice sandwich at the moment with João Vaz as the filling.
Absolutely, and it's a bit of a damaged filling as well. He's copped a little bit of a hit to that front right corner of the car. It doesn't seem to be slowing him up at all, as he took a 1/10 of a second out of Josh Anderson last time around. Actually, a very slow lap time overall for Josh Anderson, but although a lot of the pace, actually, now that I look at it, has dropped off a little bit, so the track temp has just creeped up a little bit more, perhaps, with that sun coming out, just bringing the tyres a little bit worse for wear and not bringing the traction that they once had. But João Vaz was the filling, but Carly Jansen looking awfully racy at the moment. He's closing up on the back, and we'll see what he wants to do in towards turn number 1. He's going to pull to the inside right about now, and can he make this pass on João Vaz as easy as Josh Anderson could? The answer is no. Vaz is just fighting it a little bit more. Actually had to turn out of the corner in the end. A little bit worried for contact, but João Vaz survives. Carly Jansen survives too, but also benefits 1 place.
Yeah, and that 1 place is important for Carl Jansen, jumps him up into 11th place, but it's not done yet, because here comes back João Vaz, thinking the inside, half defended there, as they go through, almost contact. Oh, there was contact! Straight on goes Carl Jansen, lock, that breaks up and all, as he now drops himself a position to Ricky Castro-Lado. Does he get on ahead of what he needs to? Just blocks Salvataylan's off. That was looking like it was going to be tough in the braking zone. Jansen made a slight move to the left-hand side to try and cover it off. And of course, it was such a tight margin. Later on the brakes with Vaz, and bang, into each other they went.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a tough one to call. It's hard to know whether it was just a bit of a late defense there from Carly Jansen, or if it was just a little bit too late on the brakes from João Vaz. But we're about to find out our answer, as we get a beautiful aerial shot looking down at Interlagos. And we can see here, you can see just about here, Carly Jansen moves to the inside, moves back to the racing line, and I've got to say, I think that's just a little bit too late on the brakes from João Vaz. Just the smallest of bumps into the back of the Porsche Cup car of Carly Jansen, but just enough to unsettle it. We'll go on board and get one last look, and you'll see here, a little bit move to the inside, Jansen on the brakes, a little bit later for João Vaz. Just the tiniest bump unsettles the car, and unfortunately a very large consequence for Carly Jansen, who goes all the way from fighting for a top 10 to what I believe will now be 14th.
It is 13th place at the moment for him. He's trying to hold off Salvataylan's with just popsicle sticks in the air. 2 laps to go around this fantastic Interlagos circuit. Is one of the greatest circuits I think you can say in terms of its legacy, its history, what it's done for Formula 1 title deciders, what it has done for great memorable races. It gave Giancarlo Fisichella his only race win in Formula 1. It has been one of the standout circuits year after year after year. But battle for second still on. Peter Berryman, Alexei Usiakala, the win out of reach for them at the moment here, Bo, as they head themselves through the infield, and now they know that they've got a lap and a half to get the move sorted and lined up.
Absolutely. If Alexei's a little bit sick of looking at the back of this car, well, he's only got a lap and a half to change his perspective on this race. But the issue is that Berryman's not really doing anything wrong. He's not got any obvious weaknesses. He's just driving what he has to do. He's just driving the car around the track, not sliding it, not over-driving, just hitting his marks. And that's exactly what he needs to do in this situation. You can see the gap to Jeff Giassi out front has come down by 0.3 of a second, but with just 1 lap left of this Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache circuit, I think he's going to be fairly comfortable at the moment in front of his home crowd. Peter Berryman just needs to keep on doing what he's doing, and he could wrap up his 2nd place. And Alexei Usiakala, well, like I said, if he wants to change his perspective on the back of that Apex Racing car, this is his last opportunity, and one of his best chances has just gone.
Some drivers say that their best opportunity comes at a track which they know all too well. In terms of Brazilian sim racing, this is the only one on the iRacing service. And of course, the Brazilian sim racing sphere has been fantastic time and time again. But behind for second, Berryman and Alexei Usiakala close into turn 4 at Interlagos, but not close enough. Slightly wider there from Berryman. Usiakala just nice and neat. What he needs to, a car length in between them as they now make their way up towards Ferradura. And now you start thinking about Alexei here. How does he try and program this move? There are opportunities here in this race. He just needs to go out there and find them other opportunities. Castro later on Yalvaz potentially. Larritzson on Tasdalen potentially as they go through. But through the fantastic Pinarino there. Again, it seems to be this middle sector which is helping the Apex car out nicely. Up into the Bico de Pato. And again, it might just have to be the Hamilton-Gasly drive to the line that we may just see. But it requires a great junction corner, Jun Sao. And at the moment, it seems it's just a little bit too far away for Alexei Usiakala up the hill. For one driver who has seen many greats come and win this race, the likes of Felipe Massa, the likes of Ayrton Senna. It is Jeff Giassi who will write his name as another race winner here at this fantastic Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace. Giassi wins for Positive Sim Racing. For second, it will be Peter Berryman ahead of Alexei Usiakala with Matti Kaidasoya in 4th position. There will be one change of position coming over the line because Salva Tayland, I think, has just taken it away from Carl Janssen on the final lap. He has, and he got it done up the hill after what could have been a slowdown penalty. In fact, it was.
Not his best effort, I have to say. I apologize for any technical difficulties you are seeing on screen, but nonetheless, Jeff Giassi, brilliant drive. And there we go. We got a Motum simulation replay up on screen now from Carl Janssen. And that was just way too easy. I've got to say, I think that was a slowdown penalty there for Carl. And unfortunately, just losing him one spot right at the death of this race. And there we go. We'll try and get a little bit of an idea of where this has happened. Of course, this hairpin, if you cut it a little bit too much, you can pick one up there. But he makes that corner relatively well. So this may be a case of very much the final corner, the exit onto the straight. Just try to protect himself a little bit. Try and make sure he gets a good run to protect his current position. But then just ask that a little bit too much. And it does not look like it. In all honesty, maybe just a bad run. And
entry.
Made things a little bit too easy. He's definitely made life very easy. So perhaps even redressing a spot. I'm actually a little bit baffled by that one, in all honesty, Sperry.
It was too wide on entry into Jun Sao. You can get a slowdown penalty if you are too far out on that right-hand side. And you're going to see it then. He's going to be over the blue markers to get a look from Carl Janssen. He is going to be using all of the road, all of the road. Is 2.6 over Peter Berryman. Alexei Usiakala, remember, he's been fighting a lot in second and third splits over the course of his racing so far. He needed these points, and he didn't want to risk it, so third it will be for him. Matti Kaidasoya will get 4th with Valtteri Alanda in 5th. Julian Rodriguez gets 6th place with Marin Cholak in 7th. Ganosa Tasdalen, he finishes up in 8th. He is the biggest mover and shaker in the field. He is up 6 places today with 9th going to Alexander Larritzson and one Joshua Anderson, who started from the 2nd row of the grid. You will have to be disappointed. He's only got a top 10.
João Vaz will finish things up in position number 11. 5 spots gained from 16th on the grid, though. But unfortunately for Ricardo Castroleto, it would be 4 spots back in 12th. Selva Talent and Carly Janssen 13th and 14th after having dramas in their race, respectively, with Oriel Bow finishing in position 15, 9 positions down. He definitely copped plenty of impacts during that race, but not as many as our retirements, unfortunately. And we did have plenty in the form of Adria Perez, Samuel Lebec, Kim Eriksson, Dennis Hrabosky, Thibaut Kazaban, and Ivo Howler, all finding issues around 17 laps here at Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache.
Yeah, it's fantastic racing that we have seen here today, and no doubts at all about it. This is some of the best racing that you will manage to find if you continue going. There is some great stuff happening on the iRacing Esports Network today as well, so make sure you join all of our friends for all of that. The iRacing Bathurst 12-hour is this weekend, is today. Make sure you check that out and see just how everyone is going to be going on with that. It starts in 1 hour's time with our good friends at Racebot TV. Make sure you check that out. But of course, a massive thanks to Motum Simulation, who gets it done for us as we look towards 1 week's time when it comes to racing here for this Porsche iRacing Cup, these Porsche Esports Supercup qualifiers, because we're heading to Virginia International Raceway for 14 laps in 1 week's time. But from Bo Albert on my left-hand side, that, of course, has been one Mr. J. Kennedy, and I, of course, have been Jake Sperry. It smiles all round as the hometown boy picks up the big, big victory. Jeff Giassi will smile as his championship is all but secured, and he now finds himself with a seat at the Esports Super Cup table. He'll be very happy with how that's gone, but you have to look, though, at drivers who need to get these results after what was a game changer this week. They'll be hoping for a little bit of peace and quiet when they head over to Virginia. We'll see you in a week's time for that fantastic race coming up.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's covering the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God.
Oh.
Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.